Welcome in to the Mountain Brook Schools, Mountain Brook Athletics podcast. I'm William Galloway. I'm the communications director for Mountain Brook Schools, and a special guest today is Alec Lewis, the 2015 graduate of Mountain Brook High School, just a couple years ahead of me, and one of my mentors who became friends and now is an industry professional, writes for The Athletic. He covers the Minnesota Vikings, who we just saw on Monday Night Football. They'll be on Sunday Night Football this week. Went to Missouri and really set the tone for sports media and journalism. All but a decade ago here at Mountain Brook, and now is doing big things in the NFL. Has worked from the MLB and covered the Kansas City Royals all over the place. Alec, my friend, great to see you. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. When you texted me last week asking if I'd be willing, I was pumped. First, to hear from you, it'd been too long,
Yeah,
probably.
that's on me.
Second, I knew you could console me from what happened in week one down in Tallahassee. But no, it's crazy to think about the time. I don't know. We spent around each other those days of bouncing around high school basketball games all over Alabama. I some of the fondest memories ever. And I try to keep in touch with it as much as I can. So pumped to be here, man.
So tell us a little bit for those who are listening and may not know who you are about your journey. So I kind of hinted that you found sports journalism through Mountain Brook when you were in high school, and you've climbed your way through the ranks at Missouri and Kansas City and now up in Minnesota. So take us on your path over the last 10 to 15 years and how you've climbed the ranks.
Yeah, bear with me. I'll talk for 20 minutes and we'll be done here. No, I mean, I go back to, I can remember being at the junior high in an upstairs classroom where we used to have like the science classes. I literally think I could walk, if that still exists. I don't even know. I haven't been in the junior high in forever. I
We've
think
got
I
a
could
brand new,
walk.
beautiful facility. When you're in town, I'll give you a tour.
Yeah, looking forward to it. But I vividly remember the classroom, and I remember walking in, and you're going in with the to meet with the counselor to prepare for your schedule for high school, and this was ninth grade. And at the top of the sheet of paper was like, what do you want to be? What do you want to, because you're picking electives. And I remember at the top, I had like sports commentator. I really like Paul Feinbaum. And I'm sitting with this counselor. She's like, you know what? If you like this, Paul Feinbaum was a sports writer for a while. So why don't you write for the Sword and Shield when you get to high school? And I'm like, no. Like I think of myself at that time as like this athlete. I'm not a writer. I don't like writing. And so I kind of was a little frustrated that that was the suggestion. And the counselor, to her credit, to this very day, I remember it. She's like, well, if you don't want to do this, you can go into the high school the first couple weeks and tell them you don't want to do it. But I'm going to sign you up for this. And I was like, how does she have the license to do that? I'm a ninth grade kid at the junior high school. So I go to high school, 10th grade, and had the opportunity with the Sword and Shield. They're like, you can write about whatever you want. Why don't you write about the basketball team? You got a lot of friends on the team. They've got this, young coach, Bucky McMillan, who seems like he's pretty interesting and good. And so I started covering the basketball team, and they became what we all know. Everybody listening to this know they became at that time. And it was a blast. I mean, I'm watching Patrick Kime and Will Hartley and Ben Shear and these guys, and I mean, it was just as fun as I've ever had. I say to this day, there has been one coach that comes close to what Bucky McMillan was and is, and that's Kevin O'Connell, the guy I cover now, and it's not even a question for me. But ended up covering Mountain Brook for the Sword and Shield. Got an opportunity with the Birmingham News in high school, and then decided this was what I wanted to do. So I went to Mizzou, did an internship every summer, lived in LA, lived in Milwaukee, worked for Kansas City, and then got the job out of college covering the Kansas City Royals for the Athletics. So it's been like a 10-year odyssey, 11-year odyssey from the time that counselor forced me into it, and I cannot thank her enough. I wish I could remember her name because I should send her a letter and like a gift card to I don't know, Dyrens or something as a thank you. But no, it's been a blast, and I'm beyond grateful for every opportunity, beginning with Bucky McMillan allowing me as a 10th grader to walk into his office with a sheet of paper with questions and answering them. The way he handled it from the beginning, just can't be more grateful for it.
Yeah, I think that's such a cool story. And you think about this community, and it's obviously a affluent suburb of Birmingham, Alabama, and people here, a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, a lot of business people, business owners, and stuff like that. And folks like you and me had this niche for sports media, sports journalism. And kind of wanting to go behind the scenes of sports, come alongside teams and programs, and create something that we now see in 2025 as we talk in the fall of 2025 is a everyone goes home from work and they get on TikTok and they get on Twitter and they get on YouTube and they want to take in content from their favorite teams or their hobbies or whatever. And so it's evolved into something where you're in the game much longer. We did a podcast with Warren Fitzpatrick. He's in the game longer than any of his high school teammates, right? And so seeing the longevity of something like that, where you take your passions and your interest and you grow it, and not the traditional set sense where it's business, it's medicine, or it's law, as you see a lot in this community, which are all great fields. But you've taken your hobby and made it a longevity and made it a lifestyle. I think that's super cool. And did you see that from some of your classmates? Because some of the guys you mentioned are doing great things out in the world, but I think few would say that it's as cool as what you get to do on a daily basis.
Well, I think if you ask some of my best friends from Mountain Brook, and it's probably your Sam Harmons, your Packy Toomey, like they would, I mean, they knew on a Thursday night when I'm driving to Center Point to watch Center Point against Pinson Valley, and then writing a story in my car for the Birmingham News on a Thursday night at 17 years old. I think my friends were like, "What the heck is this guy doing?" But he seems to like it, so we're gonna support him in that respect. And so I mean I guess it's not a direct way to answer the question there, but I mean the cool thing for me is I just say the support that I had from a lot of people, friends, my parents, I mean, allowing me to drive to Center Point on a Thursday night when I probably had homework that I should be doing for Friday. Teachers were beyond supportive. I mean, Miss Lowe, who was kind of directing the Sword and Shield at the time, just a ton of teacher. I mean, I remember Fred Major, the statistics teacher. He and I would sit in his classroom and talk about some of the opportunities. I mean, it was really all hands on deck from that community of being supportive. Like you know this, William, but we used to go. I remember driving to Carver. Not I remember driving to Montgomery to watch Mountain Brook basketball play Carver Montgomery, and I'm sitting there tweeting, scores at the end of the quarters, and the whole community seemed to be following what we're doing, and it was just a very special time to watch. I think really the basketball program build what they were, but then I even say that, and I think about Coach Yeager. When I finished high school, Coach Yeager, I don't know if I've ever said this before, he wrote me a letter like thanking me for being curious and wanting to learn about football and his program. And like, who does that? How many
Yeah.
other high school coaches in a community are writing an 18-year-old student a letter saying things like that? It was and is and remains just such a supportive, um, like just community and people, to where if you had the visions to be the attorney at which my dad is, or to be entrepreneur like my mom is, or to want to work in insurance like Sam Harmon is now, like there were people willing to come alongside you to allow you to get to that place. And that's where the gratitude that I talked about at the beginning, like it just, when I think about those times and that place, that is kind of the word that just sticks in my mind.
Yeah, and I want to go back and examine some of those early stories because I remember I think I was maybe 15 at the time to go to that Carver Montgomery game. So my dad drove me down there, and I think we turned down Alabama LSU basketball courtside seats to go watch Mountain Brook beat up a Carver Montgomery team that did not pass the eye test, and nobody thought would beat Carver Montgomery. And that was, we come out, we hit threes from the corner, but let's go back to those early contests because that like Twitter and we can talk about social media and the evolvement of the industry, but Twitter updates were the thing, right? So when you graduated, everyone was like, "Who's going to be the next Alec Lewis?" And I was like, "Me. I'll sign up. I'll create a Twitter. I'll do all these things." And that's why I have 50,000 tweets, you don't go too far back and you'll figure out what was Mountain Brook doing on 2nd and 7 with 5:37 left in the second quarter in a non-region game in late August. But that was something where you kind of found your niche, right? And you found a big following and you cultivated a lot of community eyeballs from that. So talk about kind of launching your career in that way. And obviously now your stuff goes out on The Athletic, which is a national brand, and just the involvement of writing for a school newspaper that was, I guess, once a week, once every month. Now it's once a quarter, to now putting out stuff where you've got millions of eyeballs following the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't even remember like how it started or the intentionality behind some of the tweets. I think it was just like I go to every game because I'm a nut and I love the team. And again, like I said, like so many of my friends were on the team and even like the guys when I first got to high school, like Jeremy Berman and people like that who were on the basketball team and just stars. And they were like I viewed them like that at the time. And so it was like I go to every game. There are people who really care about this team. You can see that from how they filled Spartan Arena on a Tuesday night and the amount of people in the Cage Club lining up to get to Zeke's Friday special. Like that's what it was at the time. So it just, for me, it was like, I'm here. I might as well provide updates to anybody in the community. And from there, it evolved to, I remember I had this like little blog and the crazy and unfortunate thing is I would write like certain feature stories about the team and about some of these games. And it would be on the What's Happening in Mountain Brook Facebook page. And it was like, for me, obviously an ego hit at the time of this 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, and the whole town cares for some reason about what you're saying about the basketball team. Like that's definitely what it was. But yeah, it just evolved from there. And I grew, and you know this because we talked about it as, you ended up going to Alabama and doing what you did from a TV perspective. Like I grew to really love the craft. Even today, I mean, you can see I'm at the facility. I'll ask about the games. I'll analyze NFL numbers, and I have such a fun time doing it. But even today, the fun part for me is how do I craft a story in this day and age where people have a very small attention span, and can I get them from point A to point B in an entertaining way and tell a story about a person? And if I can do that, that's like the joy that I derive from this job more than anything else. But it really just, it was so organic. From you see people retweeting and liking, so that's obviously going to give you the ego hit to want to continue to doing it. And then you're sitting there at Jacksonville State with what was just an electric crowd clad in neon watching this team at the time under Bucky McMillan just run people off the floor that it didn't feel like they had any business being on the floor with. The energy and the electricity of what that team gave the town and what that town gave back to the team was something that I will cherish being a part of forever. Like I still come back home and I'll go to Odie's and I'll get Ben's cheesy fries, and they've got this little photograph of one of the Sword and Shield stories on the wall, and it is like an emotional thing for me because of how special those times were, and the people who were around them know those times were.
Right. Yeah, when you were in high school, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 followers was a lot because that's, a decent chunk of our small community in over the mountain Birmingham. And now you've got 43.1K as I look at it with, covering Justin Jefferson. And you were with the team on Monday Night Football. So I want to ask you a little bit about your week because obviously what you do is so neat and out of the ordinary for people here and down south in Mountain Brook. So kind of walk us through your week and what you do and how you cover the team and what that looks like for you because it's not a 9 to 5 and you don't pack it up at the end of the day and go home.
No, it's exactly right. It's funny. People always ask, like, so what do you do in the off season? And I'm like, if only you guys knew what this job kind of entails. So I mean, really, I'll just start with game day. So typically, I go to every game. I travel all the time. Like the Vikings are playing in Dublin in a few weeks, and then they play in London the week after. So I'm flying to Dublin. I'm staying in London. People are probably like, man, this kid's lucky, and I definitely am. That's part of the gig. But I fly usually the day before the game. find a local spot to watch college football on that Saturday. And then on Sunday, I mean, it's getting to the stadium multiple hours before the game, trying to do my best to see what happens in the game, and then spending probably 3, 4 hours at the stadium after the game writing the story. And then you fly back 6 a.m. Monday morning, and that launches you into the week. You're going to a press conference on Monday. You're writing another story for Tuesday. You're writing a story Tuesday for Wednesday. You're recording podcast Tuesday. You're doing radio interviews Wednesday, Thursday. You're writing Thursday for Friday. I co-host a radio show Friday morning for 3 hours and then record another podcast Friday. And then I'm traveling Saturday. So that is what this lifestyle has kind of become. And my parents, who probably will watch this or listen to it, remind me all the time that I should probably take some time to enjoy life at some point. But it's I mean, you know how this business is, William.
Yeah.
It's like to get to this point and to get to this opportunity in the media sphere that I have, you really just can't. You can't. I don't know. There's like this motivational, I would say, you just motor running all the time to work at a place that I do with such high quality. Like, if I'm going to work at the Athletic and maintain this job, I better be producing on a constant,
Right.
continuous basis. And so, yeah, I mean, every day I spend time in the locker room, so an hour every day, and get to talk to a group of players that I'm very fortunate to work with. Like, there are a ton of good guys in this building. Coaching staff is filled with great people, and then the hay is usually in the barn by Sunday, and you just get to take in a game like we've always kind of wanted to. So yeah, that's the day to day. That was probably a rambling mess, but that rambling mess is a great probably look into my head of how nuts this thing can be on a week to week
That's
basis.
what we in sports media, not that I'm even in sports media, working a little bit, covering our local high school football team, calling games and stuff. But when I was doing it in college, it's an around the clock operation. I tell people I chased Nick Saban's coattails for 4 years from afar. And fourth year was COVID, so it was from way afar. Alec, the industry has changed, right? We talked a little bit about the medium. You've got a podcast. Tell us a little bit about, you're not just writing and putting out, lengthy stories, but one thing you mentioned was, and this is more of an industry question, talking about the ability to reach people with short attention spans. So how do you facilitate gamers versus game previews versus podcast stories versus quick hitting columns and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, the way I view the job is really like, how can I provide someone in everything I do something that they can't get anywhere else? And if I can do that via writing, via podcast, via radio hits, I think people will hopefully, like, it enriches their experience as a fan or as a consumer of football. And so the podcast for me, I mean, everyone said, like, you got to do a podcast, man. You're in the building every day. And I'm like, everybody has a podcast. Like, it is what it is. So why would I add, and then you co-host a couple radio shows and you're like, it'd be great to have more reps doing it. And so, yeah, I do a podcast 2 times a week, put it on YouTube, because you know this, William, like, that is a big avenue for the algorithm provides your content to people who otherwise probably wouldn't know about me and what I do. And so I view it as a supplement to what I do at The Athletic. If I mention a story via podcast that drives someone to read something that I write, like, that is just a benefit to everything that I'm producing. And then social media wise, like, I should probably be doing more Instagram live and TikToks. Like, I see Josh Pate, who covers college football,
Yeah.
like, he's in every medium at all times, and trying to master kind of just your amount of reach. And so I've had to kind of evolve in that way. I'm more of old school journalist, writing and structure of stories and threading quotes. And so that's pushed me in a lot of areas. And I've enjoyed the challenges that come with trying to meet people in this specific moment where they consume. And it's changing all the time. That's kind of the challenge of it.
And that's made you, Alec Lewis, the person, into Alec Lewis, a brand. And that's something, a lesson I tried to learn in college and establishing the Galloway podcast, which is you went into the first wave of NIL, doing a podcast with Britton Johnson and players' name, image, and likeness and things like that. And so you've got the Alec Lewis show, you've got the Alec Lewis content, you've got all the features. And like you said, the algorithm pushes you in places you didn't even think you'd ever end up. A couple quick hitters for you before we go, and a couple about Mountain Brook. Favorite class outside of Sword and Shield that you remember from junior high or high school?
Um, AP Calculus with Miss Burns. I don't know why I was in AP Calculus. I failed the calculus exam. It was awful. Terrible. I had no chance. Derivatives were, I mean, no, it was just, but Miss Burns and the way she taught that class with the passion that she taught it, the energy, her love of it somehow, because it was calculus, like rubbed off, I felt like on me and on the class in a way that I will never forget that. Like and again, I should have been nowhere near AP Calculus. Let me make that very, very clear. But yeah, that was she taught in a way that was pretty special, and that just sticks with me.
That's really awesome. Favorite game that you remember, whether it was Mountain Brook High School, Mountain Brook football, or like you said, a Center Point Pinson Valley game from your high school coverage?
Man, that is a good question. The Carver Montgomery game at Auburn Montgomery just sticks in my mind because I remember Carver Montgomery used to do this thing. Maybe they still do it, where they run in the gym for warm-ups and they throw it off the backboard. And every player throws it off the backboard, and every player throws it off the backboard. And then the last player in the layup line just two hands smashes it. And I remember I'm looking at the Mountain Brook bench, and I'm looking at these guys after the warm. I'm like, how in the world is this game going to be close? And then 2 hours later, Patrick Kime is taking charges and pointing the other way, and Ben Shearer probably hit 7 threes, and Will Hartley's like layups and contact. It was like, what in the world is going on? But that game, for me, just captured what the Bucky McMillan experience was, where, I mean, he used to use these same words all the time. Fearlessness was one of them, just like conviction. But I mean, the confidence that those teams, and probably that Coach Davis's team still have,
Yeah, absolutely.
is like, was at a level that just made it was senseless, but it worked, and it was impressive, and the style at which they played, like it blew me away always. So
Yeah.
that's the game that just stands in my mind for some reason.
A surreal moment for me was coming back and seeing Ty Davis when he was a freshman as the starting point guard on the Mountain Brook
Crazy.
basketball team, and now he's up at Creighton, and Trey is a senior, and Avery is in high school, and so when they were just the little munchkins in the gym that the kids like Will Hartley would pick up to shoot, they are now running the floor and running the gym. So time has gone by quickly. Quick prediction for Texas A&M. We talked about Bucky a little bit, but how he's going to do this year, because they did really well in the transfer portal.
The funniest thing is this, William. So I go to Mizzou, and like freshman year, I'm meeting a ton of people and got all my new friends who are like, "Who is this kid from Alabama? Why is he here?" And I told them then, I was around this coach. His name is Bucky McMillan. If he ever decides to coach college, he will be incredibly successful. And then he goes to Sanford, which I wasn't sure he would ever do. And to build it into what they built that thing was unsurprising, to say the least. And then when he got hired by Texas A&M, all of the friends that I was talking to about this guy are like, wow, what did you know? And
Yeah.
It's not about me. It was the observation of what that guy built at Mountain Brook and what he's made of. You know this. He's a different dude. The way he thinks is very different. My prediction for Texas A&M is that he wins more than anybody would ever expect them to win, and that they probably become a national power, because that is how much faith I have in that guy's ability to coach. He knows this. I've told him it many times. It wasn't always perfect between me and that staff at times, because I was willing to probably,
Disclose a little bit more. Yeah.
yeah, but then maybe disclose more than they were comfortable with. But I just have the utmost respect for his ability to lead people. And when he took that job, knowing he's going to be in the SEC, just it was like, I mean, I'm fist pumping in my
Yeah.
Minnesota apartment, which is probably not normal or healthy, but that's who I am.
It was for any of us who have been around him and the program and the staff and all his disciples who've gone all over the state and the region. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of wins. All right. So my last question for you as we wrap up here. I know you got to record your episode of the Alec Lewis show, and we're going to tune into that. I got to get your apartment number, see if I can send you a Mountain Brook shirt, and in return, if you can send me an Alec Lewis shirt. The last word, I do this with all of our guests, but to talk about your experience, you've talked about it throughout the podcast, but anything you want to say to, we're in Mountain Brook Schools for this podcast, Mountain Brook Athletics. Any word to the community of Mountain Brook, anything you want to say to your colleagues, your peers of the past, of the future, your friends, family. This is an open mic for you to close out the podcast. And once you wrap up, we'll be done and hit and record.
Yeah, there's just so much I like so many people I'd say really I want to thank. It starts with my parents. It drifts to the friends who I've talked about, who I keep up with to this day, and have done a much better job keeping up with me than I probably have with them, which I thank them immensely for. And then the other thing I'd say, like beyond the teachers, but like the parents in that community for me are such the lifeblood of why it is as special of a place as it is. I mean, whether it's like at rec league basketball games and how many parents show up to watch their kids and like them coaching growing up. And I mean, I could go, William, rambling on this question for so long because when I think back to those days, and just like the upbringing, just I cannot say enough about the environment that it was for someone like me who had these visions and dreams of trying to be something that was way beyond and different than I think just like the normal path. And the only other thing I would say is like if you're a student listening to this and you have something that you love and you're willing to work to make that thing come to life, it is possible. And like there were a lot of people I think at times were like, you're really going to go into this business. It's not that high paying of a business. It's relentless hours. And I, you just like took the leap. And I think because I've loved it and been willing to work myself to a level that's probably unhealthy, it's worked. But it wouldn't, nothing, none of it would have been possible without the support of people in that community, friends, parents, and then the teachers. Like I could rattle off Miss Guillory who taught math. I mean, Barry Hartley had to deal with my terrible chemistry assignments. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And I just can't say enough. And I wish I could get back down there more, and I try as much as possible. And when I do, you can give me a tour of that new junior high school. But the community should feel like pride in how special it is. And I know it does, but I just from someone who has lived in all these different places, it just like hits home every single time I'm back. So yeah, that's all I've got for now. And I could go for another 2 hours and probably will do it on my podcast, creatively named after my name.
Yeah.
So
Tell
yeah.
everybody as we go where we can find you and follow along, not just your coverage of the Vikings, but on socials and all those things.
Yeah, it's I'm still tweeting for some reason or another at Alec_Lewis. And then theathletic.com where we've got writers everywhere and writers who have much more of a talent with words than I do. But that's really it. The Alec Lewis Show is the podcast everywhere if you care way too much about the Vikings. So yeah, no, I thank you for having me, William. It's anytime I get to talk about Bucky, friends from those days, my terrible work ethic with teachers who did a great job of keeping me on the straight path. I love to do it. Special, special place, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I'm in the same boat. I had 30 absences my senior year, so I made it out and they hired me back full time. So what goes around comes around. Alec, thank you for your time and looking forward to hopefully seeing you in person sometime soon down the road.
Anytime, William. Alabama better course correct here shortly. I will be glued in here this Saturday. Thank you for having me, William.